Are you coming to Bonaire and only have one day to get out and do anything? Would you like to know what to do with that day? Well, that's what we're talking about in this video, and we're doing it right now. Hey folks, Kevin here. I'm on beautiful Klein Bonaire, enjoying a phenomenal trip with Liz. Right now we're enjoying the beach. We're running the boat. We came out here. But it got me thinking about, what do you do if you just have one day on Bonaire? This question is asked a lot, especially by cruise ship passengers who are only here for 6 to 7 hours, but not just cruise ship passengers. It could be flight crew that has a layover here for a day or two. Or some of us divers that come here and dive the entire week when we're on a week-long trip and then realize, oh my gosh, I should probably do something with my off-gas day, right? I'm talking to you divers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So what is the answer? If you only have one day on Bonaire, how do you make the most of it? I thought about this a lot, and you could easily come out to Klein Bonaire and enjoy the beach. Folks like doing that, or find a nice beach like Taamo or Donkey Beach on island. You could go caving, you could go land sailing, which is awesome. You could just relax. But for me, I want people to experience Bonaire. The diverse geography and topography of the island is so different. There's so many great sightseeing opportunities here in Bonaire that I just feel like if you don't see them all, you're missing out. And the thing is, if you have a taste of everything Bonaire has to offer, you're gonna wanna come back and spend a much longer time than one day. I can guarantee you that. So what do I recommend you doing one day? That's an island tour, a full island tour. We're gonna talk about that in this video. I know that was a long intro to get to where I was going, but stick with me. You're gonna need to rent a vehicle, but I'm gonna take you to the highlights of the island, show you what you should do on your one-day island tour. It's gonna whet your appetite and ensure that you want to come back. We're gonna travel north, we're gonna travel south, we're gonna see only the highlights. There is so much more to see here on this island than what we're gonna see on this island tour, but within 5 to 6 hours, which will allow time for you to enjoy each site and even get in the water some. You can do this. So we're gonna go north, we're gonna go south. You're gonna need to get an earlier start to get out there and get this done, but you can always leave things off the list. But for me, this is what I recommend you do and go see, and along the way, I'll tell you why you need to stop at these sites, but it's gonna give you a great sense of what Bonaire has to offer. So when you come back, and you will want to come back, you'll know exactly what you want to do, and you'll plan even more time for relaxation in some of these sites on your next trip. So let's dive right in to that island tour that'll only take one day. Once you have your rental car, head on over to the Bonaire Tourism Office, located at the intersection of Calle Grande and Julio A. Abraham Boulevard. This is just our starting point, so no need to park your car. Our island tour will begin and end here in downtown Kralendijk at the Bonaire Tourism Office. We'll start our tour by heading north to our first stop, 1000 Steps Beach. Our first stop is here at the dive site 1000 Steps, and I know I mentioned it's a dive site, but it's also a great beach, although it's rocky. This is very popular for snorkelers. Great snorkeling site. So recommend you spend some time here snorkeling, getting in the water. This will be a nice place to start your tour, and you're really going to enjoy it. Now, it's called 1000 Steps, and we'll show you why. In actuality, it's only about 67 steps, but if you've been diving out or snorkeling a lot, swimming in the water, you might have tired legs, and afterwards, when you come up this nice long hill, steep steps with a lot of gear on your back, or you're carrying your snorkeling equipment, those 67 steps really do feel like 1000. We're back in the car now, continuing north to our next stop, Karpata. Okay folks, our next stop on the tour is Karpata. This is another popular dive site with divers. It's a beautiful area of the island. Certainly go and look out over the ocean, it's beautiful. But it's certainly just not for divers. This is the location of a former land house here at Karpata. Karpata was a very important land house built in the late 1800s. Aloe vera, as well as other things, were produced here, but a very important land house here on the island. But fell into disrepair, and then it was renovated in the early 1980s and turned into an eco type facility. But then it fell into disrepair again. Fortunately, it is going to be renovated once again, but it is worth stopping here, spending some time. You can explore the land house, look all through the different buildings. Really is a neat place to come tour and spend some time. Enjoy the ocean view as we head north, then on to see the flamingos at our next stop, Lake Goto. Here we are at the Lake Goto overlook. This is a beautiful place. This is the next stop on our tour, and this is a wonderful place to see flamingos. Bonaire is one of only a few places in the world where the American flamingo comes to breed. And I believe January through June is the main breeding season for them, but the flamingos are always here. So it's a great place to come. This lookout is just such a panorama of the rugged part of Bonaire. You can see Mount Branderis there in the background, but it is a beautiful place to stop and look around, spend some time. Now, as you continue on your drive, there are places down on the side of the lake where you can pull off to get out to take pictures. So don't feel like this is the only time you're going to have a chance to see flamingos. You will have chances where you can be closer. Just make sure you don't harass the flamingos. And also, when you're down on the lakeside, do not walk past the rocks marking where you're not supposed to walk past. So come here, stop at Lake Goto, and you'll be glad you did. We'll continue through the interior of the island as we head to our next stop, the town of Rincon. Folks, when you see this sign, you know you've reached Rincon, which is the oldest settlement or city on the island of Bonaire. Rincon is a quaint little town on the interior of the island. It's definitely worth taking time to tour. Just walk around. It won't take you long at all. Look at the pretty yellow church. Also go by the Kadushi Distillery, where they distill cactus liqueurs as well as other things. You can sample them. It's a great little place just to stop and check in. But just walk around town. You'll be glad you did. It's a wonderful little town here on our way along our island tour of Bonaire. Next, we'll leave Rincon behind and head over to the rugged east coast to view the ancient Indian inscriptions. Just a mile or two outside of Rincon, heading back towards Kralendijk, you'll see the sign to turn left to head out to the Indian inscriptions, which is the next stop on our island tour. Look for the sign and hang a left turn and you'll know you're at the Indian inscriptions when you see the other white marker up next to the limestone. The Indian inscriptions on Bonaire are believed to date back to probably the 15th century and were painted here or put here by the Arawak Indians, it is believed. Now, folks, I'm going to level with you. Some of you might find these Indian inscriptions to be a bit, well, underwhelming. They're pretty faint. They're up high on the roof of this limestone overhang. But I think they're neat. I think it's worthwhile to spend just a few moments here and think about what life was like for these folks centuries ago. And it's also on the way to our next stop, which is the main reason we're here anyway, and that is to see the rugged east coast out at Boca Onima. A quick 1 or 2 minute drive brings us to our next stop, Boca Onima. Folks, here we are at Boca Onima on the east coast of Bonaire. And the reason I wanted you to come out here is just to see how diverse the terrain is on this side of the island. Most folks, when they travel to Bonaire, they spend the entire time of their trip on the west coast, which makes sense. That's where all the dive sites are. That's where all the resorts and lodging are. But getting on up to this middle east coast, northern east coast of the island, lets you see what the rugged terrain is like. It really is so different from anywhere else on the island. It's kind of a lunar landscape at times. And I just think it's worth your time to come out here, if only for a moment, just to take in the scenery out here. Also gives you the opportunity to see the windmills. You can even travel further out there if you'd like to see them up close. Something we don't see a lot in the United States, but I definitely think it's worthwhile to drive out here and take a look at Windmill Park. Take a look at the rugged East Coast just to see what a difference it is over here and how different and diverse the island of Bonaire is.
Next, we'll get back on the beaten path and head up to Cruise Cerro Largo for a panoramic view of the island.
When you see the sign for Cerro Largo, take a right and follow the road. You'll also see the top of the former control tower from the airport right before you see that sign for Cerro Largo. Not only is Cerro Largo a beautiful monument, it is a great place to come see the island. You've got a elevated panoramic view of the island. It's just such a different perspective up here. It's beautiful. And you get a great view of Klein Bonaire as well. It really is worth your time to come up here. You can see just the entire southern half of the island. You can see the salt piles in the distance. You can see the Willem Lighthouse well off down in the distance as well. But well worth time to come up here and get a great elevated view of Bonaire.
It's probably time for a break, so let's traverse the island and head over to Taamo Beach for lunch.
Okay, folks, we're about halfway through now, and as you drive past the airport, if you feel yourself getting hungry, I recommend you stop at Taamo Beach, which is right at the end of the airport as you take the curve, and eat at perhaps Kite City, one of the great food trucks here, or Stoked, two great food trucks here at Taamo Beach. Also, if you're feeling a little overheated, take time to hop in the water here. It's a great beach. It's one of the nicest beaches on the island for relaxing, lounging. So take a few moments here, hop in the water, grab some great food to eat before you continue on your tour.
After our break, we're back in the car and heading south to our next stop, the Bonaire Salt Works.
Folks, no island tour on Bonaire will be complete without stopping to marvel at the giant salt piles. These salt piles reach upwards of 50 feet, and the salt here is produced by solar dehydration, and once it's made, it's sent all across the world. Bonaire exports salt pretty much everywhere throughout the world, so it's pretty impressive. Stop here, take photos. The pink evaporation ponds are really great to stand in front of for pictures. You certainly can't get on the land, but definitely stop here to take time and admire the salt piles. Also take time to admire the salt pier. This is where the boats come in to pick up the salt. It's also a very popular dive site among divers. The pylons that hold up the salt pier are encrusted in coral, and you can find all types of cool little marine critters under the salt pier. So make sure you take time to stop and look at the salt piles and the salt pier.
Let's continue south and head to our next stop, the slave huts at White Slave.
The next stop on our island tour are the first set of slave huts here on the Southern Coast Road. This is known as White Slave. It's also a dive site, so that's the designation for it. These huts were built during the mid-1800s and were where the workers camped at night while they were working the salt ponds. So come down here, spend some time, take some photographs, think about the history of this place, and look at the beautiful water too. And then continue on your island tour.
We'll keep driving south to our next stop, the slave huts at Red Slave.
Next up on our island tour are the second set of slave huts. This is an area called Red Slave. It's at the very southern end of the island, so you might notice the water is a little rougher here, but it's still worth taking some time to take some pictures and look at the ocean. It really is a beautiful area down this way on the southern end of the island. So we hope you enjoy this stop on the island tour.
We'll only be in the car for a few minutes as we continue on to our next stop, the Willem Lighthouse.
Well, you probably saw our next stop at our last stop at Red Slave Huts, and that's the Willem Lighthouse. Built around 1837, I believe it was the first lighthouse built on Bonaire. Great place to stop, lots of driftwood around. It's fun to look out at the ocean, which typically is a little rougher than the rest of the island. We're technically on the eastern side of the island now. We just passed the very tip of the island. And hopefully on your drive here from Red Slave, you took time to stop to take pictures of flamingos. You no doubt saw some off to the left as you passed the salt pans. So once again, great place to stop for pictures, spend just a few moments here, then continue on your island tour.
Enjoy the rugged southern east coast as we head to our final stop, Sorbonne Beach.
Well, folks, you made it to our last stop on the island tour, and that's here at Sorbonne Beach, located at Lock Bay. Hopefully you took some time as you drove from the Lighthouse to just admire the rugged beauty of that barren land on the Eastern Coast Road. I'm sure you saw some local trash art, as we like to call it, as well as some more flamingos. But you're now here at Sorbonne, and my goodness, once you get here, you're going to know why I recommend it. You're never going to want to leave. It is stunningly beautiful. This is where all the windsurfers come to glide across that Lock Bay. Shallow, beautiful blue water. It's a great place to just get in the water, spend some time. You can literally walk for 15 minutes in ankle high water. Hang out at either Hangout Beach Bar at Job City or Sebastian's at the beach. You can certainly eat lunch at either one of these places or just enjoy a few refreshments after a long day of touring. But once again, come spend some time at Sorbonne. You'll be glad you did. This is where we're going to wrap up our island tour, so now it's time to head back to Kralendijk.
It's about a 20-minute drive from Sorbonne Beach back to the waterfront in Kralendijk, where unfortunately this tour ends.
Well, hey folks, that's going to do it for our one-day island tour. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you really do come to Bonaire and take this tour. You'll be so glad you did. Bonaire has so much to offer. These highlights are going to give you a taste of what all that is that the island has to offer. Hope you enjoyed the video. I hope even more that you're going to enjoy your tour when you get here. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Did you enjoy the tour? Do you think you can manage this tour in one day? Let me know. If you found the video helpful, make sure you give it a thumbs up. We'd really appreciate that. And I'd love to have you subscribe to our channel. I know that's kind of silly to ask, but it really does help support the channel. Helps us make additional videos for you that we hope you will find helpful. But for now, guys, I'm gonna climb Bonaire. I see Liz in the water. I'm gonna go join her, and I'll see you next time, hopefully at the next dive site.